thank Lindsay especially for being here with me today. I love your poems, and I'm so excited that you read with me and you're reading with me. I also want to thank the Ivy for having us, and Amanda, Ruby, and Maggie for setting us up and having us here, and Hannah for setting up the reading, and especially Emma, our friend, who we do the huddle with all the time, and who employs our child in the summers. Anyway, and especially also thank you to all of you for being here. I'm seeing so many familiar faces from all parts of my life, and it's pretty incredible, so thank you. I was gonna start, this is kind of funny, at least it's funny to me. I was gonna start with a couple of lines from this Robert Haas poem that keeps popping into my head, but being here with Lindsay and thinking about Stan and his collective that's coming out, and having her talk about Constable, and it's kind of crazy. Like, I am obsessed with the same book, the Elegy Landscapes book, and I quoted it at the beginning of my book, and so I think I'll begin with that instead. Well, you should read his book because he's a genius and we love him forever, but there's this part where he's talking about Constable and Turner in comparison, and he's talking about like the sort of the sublimity of their work, and he says that Constable's paintings are, it's a place as real as the imagination is real, both a moment and memory. And I was thinking about that a lot when I was writing. Well, I think about it a lot anyway, but like I definitely was thinking about it a lot when I was writing this. These poems, many of them come out of thinking about the loss of my sister Carrie over the last few years, but they also come from many other places, thinking about loss as well. But then also about memory and like how we can actually, whether we are imagining our memories or whether they are experiences that we actually hold on to. So I'll start with a poem called Good Things Are Coming. On this steaming morning, after a day of storms, we stopped to watch chainsaws divide a massive branch of willow oak that's fallen across the street and yet still lives in a sort of mid-state, separated from its body. Its flat green leaves point out the direction of the wind. It's here that my son tells me the story of Asclepius, healer of the sick, who brings the dead back to life. He's reading his way through the stars this summer, and it's got him thinking about swift punishments, irrevocable fates. Asclepius, like the mortal tree, extinguished by lightning bolt. He asks if the tree will live as we turn onto a street of condemned row houses, where here and there a paulownia grows from rifts in the sidewalk, a broken upper story window. On a cement-covered wall, block letters in teal paint rise like a cymbal crash from a cloudy wash of pink. Good things are coming, it says, like the voice of the believer willing a body from the brink. In the hospital room, I couldn't close the mouth of my dead. Instead, I kissed her forehead, though I should have begged, wait, please wait. This one, I kept seeing great blue herons everywhere for a while, and so here's a poem.
One just flew by about 5 minutes ago.
Of course I did. On location. On a small bridge over a fake canal, I looked upon a model island covered in long Floridian grasses. A great blue heron with its bead of an eye staring out over the blades stood. Gray head feathers, a little oily, wild. Cheap hotel, cheap lagoon, down on its luck bird, and me alone with my conference badge flowing around my neck on its royal blue lanyard. I wished us on the beach, far from the Pizza Hut to-go shack, behind us in its nest of palms. Or rather, I wished me away. How could I speak for a bird awaiting tourist trash? Or maybe I looked at the bird and saw myself, stranded, in need of a bath, wondering what possessed her to land in St. Petersburg, where the air is a weighted blanket. Maybe some places are just better than others. Unmasked, they don't ask you to entertain illusions. For example, I was paddling on the Chesapeake a late afternoon, spotting turtles sunning themselves near the shore, and would you believe it, a heron who'd stood at the edge of the water, spooked and took off, her feathers like slate blue fabric, the sound of her flapping wings a heavy whoosh carried back to my canoe. I watched her long body slipping low along the current, her eyes searching the water, the arum or cord grass, calculating the depths of fish beneath the water's salt and murk. What fish? Which muddy beach? I can't say I remember. In that way, I suppose it's an illusion too. Steering to shore, my flip-flops squelching clouds from the marsh bottom as we drive the boats in. He catalogs turtles seen. I scratch mosquito bites. When the evening spins out as we believe them to. Some of the poems in this collection find themselves in Sewanee, Tennessee, where I grew up in Tennessee, and part of that time I was in Sewanee, where my mom was in seminary, and so a lot of the poems have the speaker running around wild while my mom was in school. 4 to midnight. This summer I lived with my sister Amanda. She worked nights at her school's computer lab. During the hours I waited for her, I watched Star Trek reruns, wondering at the landscapes of distant planets made from fabric and paint and the odd, stretchy uniforms I was sad we'd all wear in the future. Outside, there were lightning bugs, the thrum of 18-wheelers on the bypass, and stars as thick as swarms. Sometimes, when I was brave, I'd stand with the dog, testing the atmosphere of the driveway, and maybe take enough steps to reach the road before turning back. I'd imagine walking past the pine woods, our neighbor's beached RV, and the stone fraternity houses where summer students sat on porches with bourbon and beer. The computer lab was a half-mile from our house, and the distance seemed to stretch, like each breath pushed it away from us. I concentrated on the dog's collar clanking against his tags, the heat radiating off the asphalt into the soles of our feet. I knew there would be no congratulations, but was sure Amanda would let us wait with her and her 20 screens for midnight, when the clocks tipped us closer to daylight, and she'd walk with us through the darkness towards home. I would watch the hood of stars and imagine each step moving us to the end of summer, when my mother would return, when oak and hickory leaves would dry on the ground, and pale yarrow would rise at the roadside to the height of my hands. Continuing with dogs. A trick, a lure, a gift. What looks like a wolf walks through the Piazza Venezia, her long legs bent at knobby joints, resigned on her leash, hangdog eyes waiting for her moment. As in the forum's popped walls, green parrots knock each other out of the shaded, cramped niches. The trees above my bench rattle with their bickering exile. We each bear loneliness like heat among the ruins. I search for the temple of Castor and Pollux, brothers who understand the lot of a sibling without its mate, like breathing at the bottom of the world. I take what I can get. When the trinket sellers approach, I wonder who they are now, so far from where they began. Each moment an exercise in imagination, their homelands, the way their language perks their ears, like birds calling across an expanse of trees. Can I hear your voice, or have I made it up? I cannot truly remember. Each thought, each looking back distorts, puts the truth that much farther out of reach. At Santa Maria and Cosmedin by the Tiber, I descend to the crypt, cold, damp, sulfurous air that knocks me back. There's a passage behind Hercules' altar through the ancient tufa, from which the dead could send false dreams. Are they a trick, a lure, a gift? When I step out of the church's dim light into the smack of day and stand amidst the fact of plane trees, I know their leaves are wide like sheets of paper, as fragile as skin. At a market stall I buy peaches, each knot of fruit like fresh flowers, which if you were here you'd toss by threes into the air, juggle as smaller suns against the sky so blue to look at it is pain. In the street lined with motorbikes, the litter of broken leaves, and evening settling, I picture this life as mine. My cafe, my apartment, my station. Where I walk into the street, know the scent from the doorways, the words bubbling in spray paint along the walls. Where I walk in and out of the air and fit. Warm tiles under my feet, hanging sheets to dry between afternoon storms, inside my body ticking with breath, in the nothingness of each moment. But sister, I cannot truck such dreams. You are here, you are here, you are nowhere. Sorry. So the title poem in this collection is called Notes on Endings, and it's like a 12-part poem. Each part is a month. That I was kind of thinking, well, I don't know what I was thinking, but I wrote it. Sorry. It's like, how am I gonna, no, I'm not gonna explain. September. Oh, and I did think that I would read you guys, I'm not reading you the whole thing. It's long. But I'm gonna read September and October because like, it's September, but it's almost October. September. Like Ariadne, we unspooled our thread, wrapped tree trunks to mark our zigzag path from the house through the woods. Somewhere there'd be a crack in a boulder, a drop approaching in the dusk. Looking for wood smoke above the fading summer trees, we searched what was left of the light, expecting the Minotaur waiting at the cave's mouth. October. A crush of children on the sidewalks, running to houses in the near dark. Doorbells, candy in pillowcases, costumes unraveling, detritus left like storm trash blown across the grass, a headdress, a mask, a necklace of jewels. And I'm gonna read one more poem. This is, it's called Bower of Bliss, and if you are a poetry nerd, then you know that this is a reference to Edmund Spenser's poem called The Fairy Queen, which I don't expect you to know, but I'll just say that the Bower of Bliss is supposed to be like this perfect eternal spring place, but of course it's not, because that's impossible. But I fell in love with this idea in college, and it's never really left me. Bower of Bliss. Last night at the play, as the father actor stood crying, counting the reasons he could not go on, and the friend actress counted back reasons to forgive death's injustice, I found myself thinking about who I must forgive. My sister for dying. How can I begin? Maybe forgiveness isn't the right word. Disease, I know, with its splitting cells, in which blind tumors reel and slake their hunger, is out of my hands. Doesn't care what I want. What if I forgave the summer instead? The nasturtium stems tangled in their pots, the spikes of cardinal flower hanging over the walk, where mulberries like manna rot, vinegar sweet. In the branches above, all manner of birds rest, feast, schoolless through the small curling leaves, fences, the neighborhood painted in their purple shit, year after year. Toward the end, my sister sat on her porch, watching the trees flutter, waited with the thrum of all those songs. The morning sun low, the air warming by the minute, floating in its calm sea, insisting on the slowness of oblivion. Time out of time that inches, sunlight on leaf, water and air, bees stumbling among blossom, a world cast in gold, brass, green. Don't move, I think, barely breathe. In this moment, there's nothing broken, nothing shattered, nothing worth your counting. Why can't we lie? Refuse the world that drifts, dims, and pales. The night that turns cold, covers us in frost, that hushes us to sleep. Thank you.
Beautiful. Congratulations, Claire. Claire already knows how much I love her book. You all now know how much I love her book. I was lucky that I got to read it early, and so I've spent a lot of time with it, and I'm so lucky for all of you. I'm so happy for all of you. You're all lucky that you get to read this really beautiful book. So I just have a few questions to start us off, and then I was hoping that y'all could ask Claire some questions. You can always just say I'm not going to, whatever, and you have the right to say I'm not answering that question. Normally I give my questions to people in advance, but I was literally writing them at the last minute. They're all easy. They're easy questions. Okay, so what I admire so much about Notes on Endings is its shape, the shape of the individual poems, how they inhabit various forms, and the overall arc of the book. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey through this book, how you arrived at this version that is really flawless in my opinion? It's so precise.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been working on it for a number of years, so it began as something very different than what it is now. I think most books end up that way. But let's see. I don't know. I knew that I wanted to have a long poem, and I knew that I wanted the poems to be good. That sounds like a terrible answer. So I took out the bad ones. No, I don't know. I mean,
that's such a Maryland answer. I feel like our teachers are like, no bad poems, only good poems, and you have to have like a long poem.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say this too, like I am very, I really care about specificity, and I'm also a teacher, and if you were in my classes, you would hear me say that all the time, like, be specific, and I do say that a lot to myself, and so yeah, I do think that like part of crafting for me is spending more time on like the polishing and like the sort of chiseling and the preciseness, I guess.
Okay. Also, we all know now from hearing this, the book is elegiac, and elegiac poems are like so hard. They're so rough on you. At least that's my experience. I think for some people, it's like, oh, it's so therapeutic. It's really cathartic to write these like elegies. I find it to be horrific, but yet like inevitable. Like you have to do that. You have to do it. I don't know what your experience is or was, but I'm curious about the role that place and like the pastoral place in this book. How the landscape like provided you with that distance that you need. You know, because what's so remarkable about this book is how, you know, it's just like, it's not like sentimental, and that's like what elegies can be really cheesy.
Yeah. I think I started out thinking about so Suwannee is sort of a central place for our family, and most of my family still lives in Nashville. I should thank my brother-in-law who's here from Nashville. It's here somewhere. So yes, thanks, Jeremy, for being here. Yeah, so it's sort of like this central place, and so location and being outside is really important to us too. And so I think ultimately, like when I'm thinking about writing, I'm thinking about location first. I don't know, and when I'm thinking about my family, I'm thinking about the place too, and like the places that we are together. I think it is really tricky to write elegies as well, and I don't find it particularly therapeutic either. But I will say that, you know, when you're writing about what you're thinking about, right? I mean, that's what writing is thinking, right? So, so you're writing what you're thinking about, and if you're thinking about loss and grief, then that's what you're writing about, I guess, right?
I mean, it's like unavoidable. Okay, I have one more question, and then y'all can ask questions. Okay, so my last question before I turn to all of you is about mothering. Like, you're a mother who lost her sister and watched and cared for her mother who has lost her daughter. Like, experienced that unimaginable, like most unnatural reality, like outliving one's child. Like, can you speak a bit about that dynamic? You know, I'm thinking about, there's so many poems that deal with that, and I'm thinking about like having lost her daughter, my mother on her knees, or Island Camp, and Notes on Peachlet Pond.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about all of them. I just feel like
I think that I think it's striking as an experience as a parent to think about the weight of these people in your life, like your kids. Like, I think that is and to think of being separated from them. I think that is incredibly challenging in a lot of ways, and I think that if you experience it, you start to see it. Like I said before, like when I was seeing herons everywhere. I mean, of course, they're not herons everywhere, right? Like, when you see something, you start thinking about it, you see it everywhere, right? And I think that when I'm thinking about my mother losing her daughter, I'm starting to see that everywhere. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that's probably where the rest of that thinking comes from. Yes.
Thank you so much. Do you all have any questions? Maybe it's like Quaker meeting style. I don't know. Because I don't know anyone's. It's like in the classroom. I know people's names. Like, you just wait and you stand and say something. You feel like you have a question.
I'm Jennifer. Claire, congratulations. Reading was beautiful. Speaking of herons and the profusion of nature imagery, can you talk a little bit about like how that ties in with any kind of spirituality that helped you cope with the loss during the writing of the poems?
I don't know. Like, I think I have a long history of going to Episcopal churches with my Episcopal mother and being in Swanee, which is a very Episcopal place. And so, like, that experience is sort of everywhere.
Hummingbird. Who's a hummingbird?
I don't know. I like to think that that nature and I don't know, spiritual. I'm not particularly religious myself, but I do think that when you're writing, you are having an opportunity just to meditate, and I think that's the most important thing to me, is the meditation on nature, on the things that you're thinking about. Like, it just spending time. Okay.
I'm curious what kind of crystallized the book now, because I think you've been around poetry for quite a long time, if I understand. And this is your first book, which is wonderful. And do you have an idea of sort of moving on to another book or something?
Well, so I've been trying to publish a book for a long time. So I think it's just, it's luck, I guess. Sometimes, I mean, you have manuscripts, and sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not. And I think that this one is, if I'm answering your question correctly, I think, I lucked out this time. Like, it's rough out there.
First,
Yeah.
Love it. I'm curious, what was your, was there like some kind of turning point when you realized that you were done with the book, when you were done writing the poem?
No. Like, I think you just, I don't know, don't you just decide, like, it has to be done now? I'm done with this.
I feel like I'm not a good person to answer that question because I feel like it was my book. This book like wasn't done until it was like accepted, and then like okay, now I can stop revising it or like trashing poems and writing new poems.
I
and,
completely
like,
agree.
You know, it's like that's the sad reality of like publication. Is like that's a way to complete something because it's like okay, now I don't have to work on it anymore because it's here, it's out.
Somebody else decided it was good enough. And you're not going to ever decide that it's good enough, right? Like, you're always going to be like, no, it's terrible.
So, what was the hardest idea or image or poem that you had to let go of? Like you were saying, pick the good ones, throw out the bad ones.
I think there was a poem I had written where I was trying to write a good poem about something that my sister Carrie used to do, where she would she liked small creatures and she would always be trying to like coax animals to come to her and like feed them and stuff, which is not good because they were usually wild animals. So she was awesome. But I kept trying to write a good poem, but it wasn't happening, and I was like, okay, I can't, and I'll tell you this, like it wasn't working because it was sentimental. I was like this, it's not good, you know. So sometimes you are writing things and you want to write well about them, but it just isn't. Maybe I'll write it later. It might be better later.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.